What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Seoul Therapy, the podcast. My name is Daniel.
Daytona.
Today, we'll be talking about the iconic label and club Master Plan, and we'll also be reviewing Fana's Fanatiic 2 album. As usual, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on all streaming platforms, and don't forget to give us that 5-star rating on Spotify as well. Also, for more contents, please go and follow our socials at soul_therapy. And also, please support our page on Coffee at ko-fi.com/soul therapy. Master Plan. For those who have no idea what Master Plan is, to me, Master Plan is one of the most iconic clubs, but not just a club, but it's like a label as well at the same time. This club label is kind of like the pioneer in terms of growing the hip hop scene, kind of like the
Mm,
underground scene, but it's so prevalent and so important because if it wasn't for Master Plan, I don't think we would be having these types of conversation about the Korean hip hop scene.
mm,
That's how important Master Plan was. And I mean, there's just a lot of artists, and I feel like a lot of people kind of forego or kind of forget about Master Plan because it's been such a long time since people held conversations about Master Plan. And so for people who listen to like Korean hip hop, I'm sure people are familiar with artists like Side B, DJ
mm.
Soulscape, Born
Yeah.
Kim, Jvcki, Infinite
Mm.
Flow, DJ Rex, Defcon, Red Rock, all the
Fosco,
yeah, Vasco as well.
the old name of Bill Stacks. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much more artists, but those guys are kind of like the essential guys who kind of
Mm,
paved the way for to where hip hop is today. And if it wasn't for them, again, like I said, we wouldn't be having these type of conversations because it just goes to show how important that club was. You know what I mean? It was like they were kind of like the hip hop bugs. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of like just crawled around, looking for ways to survive. No, it's true because like
yeah.
during that time, like Korea was never prone to hip hop, nor hip hop had a good image in Korea, or that's what at least people kind of perceived it as. People kind of looked at hip hop just as like this, oh, kind of like this, who are you type of guys. They casted him as like an outsider, and so for them to kind of just stick around, to hold their ground, and to stand firm, and to create something like Master Plan, I think it's just so amazing, and I think it goes to show that we should never forget who Master Plan was, and I think it's important to have these types of conversation about Master Plan.
Hmm.
This club and label was kind of also like a all about respect. You had to. It wasn't like some free club. Like these artists actually had to make their way into the club by earning the respect of their older ones and like
Yes.
earning the respect of the crowds. You
Hmm.
can't just. It's like the Apollo Theater. You know what I mean? Kind of,
Hmm.
but like a Korean version of like a little underground club. It wasn't just like a free type of pass. Like you had to work your way in. Like you had to be like a well respected, well rounded hip hop artist, or else you'd kind of just be like what are you doing here? So it wasn't like some type of, oh hey, welcome, you're an artist, all right, welcome to. It wasn't like that. You literally had to work your way in, and it was a difficult process because again, hip hop was not popular back in the day, and so
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of these artists struggle just to make it into that club and label.
Like what Master Plan did for Korean hip hop is definitely it was crucial. Like
Mm-hmm.
without the existence of Master Plan, it would have all gone differently because this was basically the first blueprint of what the Korean underground was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Originally, it was a club called like Blue Oyster or something.
Mm-hmm.
The Korean name is like 푸른글 양식장, and that's I don't know what 양식장 is in English. So 푸른글 is like blue oyster,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner of this club was someone called Lee Jong-hyun.
Lee Jong Hyun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he went by the name of Don Mani
Yeah.
back in the day, and
Mm-hmm.
then now he's going by the name Sombrero. Like the
Mm.
dude has a very, with all his talents, I think he has a horrible sense in actually naming himself. But
Yeah.
um, nowadays, Master Plan is defunct.
Yeah.
Now I think it
It's like
kind of
happy
changed.
robot.
Yeah, it became called as Happy Robot Records.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also a kind of like festival management company.
Mhm.
There's a festival in Korea called Grand Min Festival, GMF.
Right.
Yeah, that's these guys. Master Plan Music Group does that. And before all this, basically, almost everyone you know has gone through Master Plan
Yeah.
in one way, shape, or form. Like even this is not even in the case of exclusively like the underground scene either,
Mhm.
because for example, like Dynamic Duo. Before Dynamic Duo was a thing, they were used to be called CB Mass.
Mhm.
And before CB Mass, actually, there was
KOD.
another group called KOD.
Yeah.
And KOD defeated Master Plan.
Mm.
So even the most mainstream acts in this sense came from Master Plan. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like before the whole movement thing kicked off, like this happened here.
Right.
Uh, Even like Mithragen from Epic High,
Right. Mhm.
he was in a team called K Riders, I think.
Mhm.
Although they weren't that prominent, but he debuted through Master Plan too.
It
You know
was
what
a
I mean?
start, yeah.
Yeah, MC Sniper, everything. So there was rarely an instance in which Master Plan wasn't in a rapper's career.
Mhm.
Kim Jin Pyo, who's more of
Oh,
a
yeah. Mhm.
known as a SMTM MC, but he's actually he had a career before this, and that was through Master Plan.
Essentially, the people that we listen to today all came from Master Plan, if you
Yeah,
kinda
in
think
one way,
about it,
shape, or
yeah.
form. Yeah, I wouldn't even go like that way,
Mhm.
because you'll have to say it's definitely sure like the contemporary hip hop isn't exactly Master Plan influenced. I mean,
Mhm.
it's influenced, but it's not a direct influence.
Right.
Like more of the OGs
Yeah.
came through this place, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Verbal
yeah.
Gent's crew SMP came through here as well. We don't hear about him anymore, but UMC, who was on the polar opposite of VJ, was also through here.
Mhm.
Even the founders of Soul Company, like Kibi, went through here as well. And I think Master Plan was also responsible for putting out records as well.
Yeah.
I think they put out Bill's Bosco,
Mhm.
current day Bill Stacks. His first record, I think, came out of Master Plan.
A lot of
Uh,
the artists' music came from,
yeah,
Master Plan, essentially.
yeah. One Son as well.
Yep. Chuseok.
Uh, Jvcki and Soulscape's first album, which is classic status.
You're right, the
Like that
180
came
grams.
out of that also came out of Master Plan. But the problem was with Master Plan. This is actually an excerpt from One Son's interview. Is that Master Plan really didn't waste money. Like they put all the
Mhm.
money they can into making the music,
Yeah.
but when it comes to marketing it, they rarely had any expertise in it.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the reasons in which Master Plan as a music record label didn't go that far.
Mm.
Like it made great music, but it didn't actually market it that much.
Mhm.
And I think that was a problem.
Right.
But then again, this is an account of only one person who was going through it, so I'm not sure.
Right.
And like a lot of the rappers that came through Master Plan and was the biggest face of Master Plan is no longer rappers anymore.
Mm.
There was a guy called Born Kim,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and there was also a guy called Joe Brown.
Mhm.
And like Born Kim, I'm not sure exactly, but Joe Brown nowadays is more like a music video director.
I think Born Kim, he only had, like, what, couple singles that was off of
Yeah,
Master Plan's compilation album, and then he dropped, like, couple singles on his own, but I
yeah.
don't think he ever made, like, a full-length album or even
I think he has
EP.
a mixtape somewhere or
Yeah,
something. I'm
probably a
not sure.
mixtape, yeah.
And they were incredibly talented people, so I just don't think that Master Plan's model of business was exactly sustainable,
Yeah.
which is a shame. But then again, we got great record labels after that. So
Yeah, it's,
mhm.
I think one of the biggest surprise that I didn't know that was, DEF CON. Like, I had no idea he
Yeah,
was a part of a Master Plan.
I think it was through SNP. I think
Mhm.
with VJ, like Verbal Jin and Def Con were very close when they were
Mm.
like beginning their careers. So nowadays they kind of I think grew apart.
Yeah.
because they went down different paths, but
Uh-huh.
they were pretty inseparable during those early SMP days. And I think that kind of makes it default that DEF CON be a huge part of of Master Plan as well.
Yeah, and I also think for people who are listening to Korean hip hop music now, I think they know because we have like Seotaeji and like people label
Mm,
Seotaeji wa as the kind of like the trendsetters, and
mhm,
so and like all the other hip hop artists in the 90s. But I think you also have to, if you want to kind of dig deeper, definitely Master Plan is definitely up there because, again, if it wasn't
mm,
for that label and that club, again, we wouldn't be sitting up here and like having all these amazing conversations about, how much Korean hip hop has grown. And, we wouldn't even have, like you said, all the other labels like Soul Company or, like Jungle Entertainment. Like we wouldn't even have all that if it wasn't for Master Plan. They were kind of like, to me, like the glue of like the
mm.
underground scene. Like if it wasn't for everything would have just fell apart and we wouldn't I don't even know if we would have had Korean hip hop to this extent. And so
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me because I was watching Treja's Road. For those that
Mm,
don't know Treja's Road, it's like the member dynamic duo Treja. He goes on like a finding the best kind of like the local eatery kind of pubs restaurants, and he just kind of have like a conversation with different artists, and they had an episode with like a reunion with Master Plan, the founder Lee jong, and
mm,
I thought it was such a like a refreshing retake or a revisit on kind of like their days and Master Plan. It was pretty cool to see, like for me as a
mm,
person who is getting to know more about Master Plan, what how seminal and how important they were. It was really cool to see them reunite together and to like kind of witness kind of like what they went through.
mm,
Just for like a brief moment, and when like Trejo was like, "Yeah, we were kind of like the parasites, we were just like kind of like we were the outcasts. We were kind of like labeled as guys that wouldn't have made it from the public's view. And so I think it's really cool to see where they were able to kind of just have all these good conversations and to like kind of have like a small little reunion. And so yeah, I think people should definitely take a listen to other songs from Master Plan's productions, especially
mm.
Jvcki. I think Jvcki
Yeah.
is one of the guys who long and gone, like been forgot about, especially because
Mm.
I don't know, Chuseok is one of the artists that kind of like brought in like that bling hip hop, like that bling era hip hop.
Yeah, it was really weird because his fashion sense and everything was
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
but his lyrics are incredibly abstract. So it's like,
Interesting.
yeah, like if you look at the lyrics, I still don't understand it because it used very complicated words in a very disjointed fashion as well. So I was like,
Mm,
we always talked about on this podcast about how Korean hip hop had a problem when it comes to finding what it was actually supposed to talk about, right?
yeah.
So I think that kind of abstraction kind of was a way of embodying a certain sense of rebellion against
Mm,
conventional order.
right.
Um, and I think Juzok played a part in that. It's just that these days, like as much as I like abstract hip hop, Juzok stuff oftentimes kind of reads as a bit of word salad, you would
Word
say.
salad.
Yeah. Not all the times, but about I say like 3 to 4 times out of 10.
Okay.
It was really it's very interesting. Like you take the aesthetics, but of bling, you take bling era aesthetics, but actually don't talk about bling, but more about a sense of alienation or I don't know. I mean, it was very interesting because the bling culture, the bling era in American hip hop especially, is kind of regarded as the downfall in a lot of sense, right?
Hmm.
The period in which everything was fucked up.
Yeah.
But because it kind of removed the socioeconomic kind of progressivism that hip hop used to have, right?
Yeah.
But it is very weird that the fashion came over as the same thing, but it represents a totally different thing in here because that period in Korean hip hop was actually way more progressive than it is now.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really weird. Another countries like America's. fashion statements in hip hop regarded as being reactionary then was actually meaning something totally different here.
Mm.
So, I mean, it's very weird. I think this language barrier existed,
Mhm.
and how should you say this? I think it's like this. Even during the bling era, in a sense, I think that I don't give a fuck attitude
Yeah.
kind of persisted. Like that's
Uh-huh.
some will say it's a problem. I saw it as more of an. I think it was more of a natural progression.
Yeah.
Um, Under a capitalistic dogma and a system, the people who are often perpetrators or people who benefit from the system somehow still think that they are fighting against the system, even
Mm.
though oftentimes because they had started from nothing,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So they blame the hierarchical people in position rather than the system itself.
Yeah.
And this is very natural. This is very intuitive and this is very empirical.
Mhm.
I won't say it's rational, but it is definitely empirical. You can't blame people for being empirical, right?
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but it is what it is. And I think that was why this kind of disparity or
Yeah.
mismatch happened.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, the forefront, a lot of the people who are at the forefront of Korean hip hop wasn't exactly well versed in English.
Yeah.
So I think they just got the sentiment of rebellion,
Mhm.
in which it actually wasn't, but there was that feeling, that sentiment that you were fighting against something remained in hip hop even through the bling era, right?
Yeah.
It was the problem was that it wasn't against the system anymore. It was more about the people that were somehow below them, or I don't know, a general sense of people, not people against the system, but people against the people in a
You're right.
sense. But that subtext didn't exactly get translated through
Mhm.
because it was Korean hip hop. Because we were Korean, we didn't know that we weren't great in English, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it, it's completely understandable that rappers like Chuseok, with all that bling shit, um, with that kind of fashion aesthetic, he still rapped about the things he did.
Yeah,
That's
that's
where the
pretty
mismatch comes.
yeah.
If you really think about it, rappers like Verbal Jin, for example,
Mhm.
he was actually fluent in English.
Mm.
You don't see him rocking jewels, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a reason to it. Um, although I'm not sure if Jusok truly is not that fluent in English or not. I have no idea. But Jusok was one of the many people who had that kind of fashion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think a lot that subtext was largely not read in
Oh,
Korean hip hop.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Now it's more like the things are finally catching up.
Yeah.
So whether you think it's great or not, at least I'll say it's more consistent now.
Yeah, overall, I think, this conversation about Master Plan, I think it was really
Mm,
important because it just helps to understand not just for us who are Korean, but I think for the viewers and the listeners
mm,
tuning in, I think it's a good kind of like a educational kind of a brief little lesson about more in depth about like the Korean hip hop culture. And
yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, so moving on, I think, this is a album review that I kind of wanted to talk about for a while, and this is a
Yeah.
Fana's Fanatic
Mhm,
2 album. And
mm. Another
man,
master plan graduate.
yeah.
Mm.
And this album was wow, I was just so shocked when he announced that Fanatic 2 was gonna drop. And I mean, Fanatic 1 is an instant classic. It's a piece.
He named it well too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
instead of
he
saying
did, yeah.
fanatic 2, it's like two eyes.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
really smart on him, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of dope.
Would you say this was a highly anticipated or highly awaited sequel, or was this like a
This was
surprise
actually very
sequel?
highly anticipated.
Oh,
But
okay.
the problem was like they announced this very way earlier. I think it was like 2 years ago almost.
Wow.
So it was like, man, this is gonna be detox all over again, like that kind of
Wow.
shit. But it actually came out. The thing is, it's like this. People were beginning to forget about this because
Mm.
usually it was supposed to come out at the 10th anniversary of the first Fanatic album.
Right, right.
But the thing is, it didn't. because they were
Uh-huh.
so busy. Fana got newly married. Quiet
Yeah.
had Show Me the Money stuff and new label stuff going on and everything. But then again, when they said they were going to drop the second Fanatic, like they announced it like a day before.
Yeah.
It was like everyone was surprised, like, holy shit,
Mhm.
they're just going to drop it out of the blue.
Yeah.
So like the community was on fire, like because Fana literally never disappointed.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single bad Fana album. You know how we talked about how Korean rappers take much more time in making albums than a lot of rappers in the states do,
Yeah.
because first of all, Korean rappers are way more financially unstable in general,
Yeah.
especially if you aren't a big name like J Park or something.
Yeah.
And well, the album form isn't as cherished as in Korea as a lot of Western countries.
Mhm.
I mean, granted, these days I don't think that's the case for Western music as well. But anyway, but Hwana always kind of was very consistent in his own way. He
Yeah.
has like, if I'm correct, he has like 5 albums out.
5, yeah.
Yeah, not many rappers in Korea have 5 studio albums.
Yeah.
That it really is a huge number when it comes to Korean hip hop, and having that kind of discography is, I don't know.
It's impressive.
Yeah, yeah, that's the word. It's very impressive. Granted, like it's not just the album, but Fana's character alone.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
he raps about the things he does. I won't say he's anti-capitalistic, but he's definitely not capitalistic centered.
Mhm.
Nowadays, that's a real rarity.
Yeah.
Even I think it's such a tragic thing, in a sense, because if you look at the American underground scene, you have rappers like, for example, like Arm and the Hammer,
Yeah.
or well, I won't say Griselda. Griselda is actually very
Earl
pro-capitalistic.
Sweatshirt.
Earl Swisher, that kind of things.
Yeah.
That isn't common here,
Mhm.
and that's not on the rappers. That's more about what Korea is as a country.
Yeah.
It's very hard to survive in Korea being anti-capitalistic.
Mhm.
Like even the poorest individual to the most richest individual, you will very hard pressed to find someone who is
Mhm.
anti-capitalist, because of our history and everything. I won't go too far into that, but anyway. And even the most conscious rappers have a certain sense of nihilism in their music,
Mhm.
inadvertently and
Yeah.
inevitably. They just have a different stance on money,
Mhm.
but and not stance, a different nuance in the way talk about money. But at the end of the
Right.
day, a lot of the message surrounds that you have to get that money.
Mhm.
Fana wasn't exactly that kind of person.
No,
Fana
yeah.
really inadvertently, out of purpose or I don't know, he has a very strong message within his music that's more about not fuck the money, but at least some sort of sentiment saying that money isn't everything.
Exactly, yeah.
That is incredibly hard to find.
Uh-huh.
And although this album he kind of seceded a little bit, I think
Mhm.
it is still an amount that is very rare to see.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even blame him for
Mhm.
that kind of little seceded succession because dude stays so real for like how many years I can't even count.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
It's
deserves that
hard.
money. If
Yeah.
anyone deserves money, it's this guy.
Yeah.
So and at the end of the day, like anti-capitalism doesn't mean you should be poor. Like
Yeah.
socialism is with no car, no house. Like that's bullshit. Go
Yeah.
fuck yourself if you're really thinking that. But this was just so good to see. Even like the production itself and the
Yeah.
way he's rhyming on it. Like he has been always the master rhymesmith, as we have been talking about it always.
Yeah.
Like for example, like I'll actually recite some lyrics here.
Yeah.
Forgive me the cringe. Um, there is a song called Para, I think.
Yeah. Para, yeah.
Yeah, how what track is that?
It was 11, Germination.
Yeah, it's called Germination, huh? Yeah, that's actually the right translation here. He uses the triple flow there.
Mm.
And let me look it up real quick. Yeah, and every third 3 syllables, like the entire verse, is broken down into 3 syllables.
Mhm.
And the thing is, for example, like A B C A B C A B C A B C.
Mhm.
That pattern. does not miss a single word, a single letter.
Mm.
Like it's daisy chained so closely together.
Mhm.
Like just listen to it. I know you will not understand the lyrics here, but listen to like, and it will feel like it's rhyming because the vowels rhyme here. 맘대로
Mhm.
과대포 장되고 황폐로 바랜저 파내벼 과대면 할 때면 낮게 더 아래로. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's rhyming, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, like, this isn't just words. Like, I just recited a whole sentence.
Mm.
This is a single sentence. He does
Wow.
this for the entirety of the first verse.
Wow.
So it goes like this. 맘대로 과대포 장대고 황폐로 바랜저 파내며 과대면 할 때면 낮게도 아래로 향했던 나의 역 계속 파내려 가계적 차에서 안에서
Dang.
약했던 싸게서 사생길 다닐 척 가겠어 사생적 한계점 앞에서. Like,
That's crazy.
yeah, there's not a single letter that doesn't rhyme here on an entire verse.
That's
This
ridiculous.
guy truly
Wow.
is the MF Doom of our of Korean hip
Oh,
hop,
yeah. No
and it
doubt.
makes
Yeah.
perfect sense, and it's very poetic as well.
Mhm.
Like this kind of lyrical mastery I have never seen ever. Like for example, other rhymesmiths like P Type, for example.
Yeah.
P Type is also a very intricate rhymer,
Mhm.
but not to this point.
Oh, no, no,
Like
no. No, no, no.
he's very poetic. He's very accomplished in rhyming as well, but he's more like the big pun kind of guy.
Yeah.
Big Pun being a great rhymer wasn't, I this is a personal opinion, but he's never on like Doom's level of intricacy.
Mm.
Like this is Doom level shit.
Yeah.
Like how it's harder to find words that he didn't rhyme
Yeah.
throughout his entire verse. And to hear this kind of lyrical mastery again, is very refreshing.
It is, yeah.
Because I've missed this kind of circus kind of thing,
No,
actually.
same here. Yeah.
Yeah, this almost inhuman level of ingenuity is always good to see.
It is, yeah.
Truly, like the potential and how far the art form of hip hop can go. Like
Yeah.
this is especially in Korean hip hop. Like, I mean, if you think about it, like back in the like '90s, late '90s and early 2000s,
Mhm.
we had like college professors saying you will never be able to rhyme in Korean.
Mm.
That shit was on like local newspapers and stuff.
Wow.
Like it was all a part of like the establishment trying to shit on like newer subcultures.
Uh-huh.
Like, you'll never be able to rhyme properly in Korean. Like it's possible in English, but because it's Koreans don't finish their sentences with nouns, it will be impossible. But then you get examples like this. We
Right.
have come so far, and I
Yeah, no
can't
doubt.
help but feel kind of little proud about that.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know how he does this.
Yeah,
Seriously, I look at his lyrics and it's like, how did you make all this rhyme?
it's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
when I'm listening to this album, like, the one track that really stuck out, of course, I agree, Germination was definitely one of the
Mm,
tracks, but there's another track called Green is the New Black, which features
mm.
Sway D, Take One, Zena the Zilla, and Bill Stacks.
Yeah.
And
The
granted,
posse code.
and granted, some of the featurings was it was decent, but the production to that track was just like, what the heck? It just felt very old school, but at the same time new in a way because you're adding in like the new artists, but also you bring in the veterans who associated to
I
Fana
think
and
it was more about the drums are kind of contemporary,
yeah,
but the sample usage, I don't think it was old school necessarily, but it was
mm,
definitely eclectic. And
it was yeah,
and I think in this age of music, eclecticism kind of translates into old school stuff.
yeah,
Like because nowadays it's like more about splicing.
yeah,
So like unconventional samples are automatically like kind of remind you of older stuff, even though
hmm
it's not exactly older stuff. Like
yeah,
if you do a direct comparison, but I think that kind of eclecticism is something that we're missing, and this track gave me that. Um,
yeah.
and I also love like how everyone involved actually has a connection with the word green.
Green, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I was gonna say. That's pretty cool.
and Swady always talked about green stuff, like even back in like Green Club days with
Yeah,
the collaboration with Be Free. And Take One has obviously an album called Green
yep,
Ideology. Bill Stacks is the leading weed legalization guy.
yeah.
Zenithazilla, the
It's
green
pure
hair
green.
guy. Yeah, so it's like, and Fana. also dyed his hair green. I
Yep,
think.
exactly.
I think he is going with the green thing as
The
well.
Green Goblin, as he calls
Yeah,
himself, the Green
yeah,
Goblin.
exactly. So it fit perfectly. I mean,
Fan of Funk was crazy too, with Justice, that sample usage. What the
mm,
heck, dude? That was insane.
Justice was kind of disappointing me for a little while there. I mean,
Mm,
not this track, but like these days, like it
in
seemed
general.
like that. What was that single?
Oh yeah, the NFT one for the
Yeah, I mean, like
yeah, I know what you
aside
mean.
from the whole NFT thing, if I have to rant on NFTs, like this episode will end. But the song was just,
Yeah, I know
oh,
what
it
you
was
mean.
god awful.
Yeah,
It was actually, yeah. Go on.
it definitely was a like a throwaway track. I
I mean, this is not even a sentiment of mine. Like the community, and even not. I'm not talking about the like hip hop community
mhm,
only here because like Justice is now a kind of a household name at this
yeah.
point. Like literally everyone hated that song.
Yeah.
It's not because the song is like not that great. It's like it's actively cringy.
Yeah.
Like maybe you foreign listeners will not catch up on this because if you're not familiar with Korean, but the way he just structured his words and pronounces it, everything was like
Yeah.
so fucking corny. And like with the hornet stuff too, like boo
Yeah.
boo 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 boo, like fuck, it was so bad. It was literally like the worst track of last year for me.
Mm,
Top 10 worst tracks. If I have to make it, that shit is number one. It was so cringy. But
yeah.
what he did here kind of is what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Don't do
No
that
doubt.
weird bullshit. Like you can't
Yeah.
sing. Like your sense of melodies aren't that great either. Like stick to this. Like when you do this, you sound great. Is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And like it was a very throwback beat too. Like this isn't some East Coast contemporary boom bap. This is like far back in the '80s kind of boom bap.
Yeah.
This is like LL Cool J shit, and it worked perfectly. Like I honestly thought like when I first heard the beat, I was like, maybe he's going too back too far.
Mm.
But as like the first verse and everything's coming through, yeah, this is great. He killed it.
And then the track towards the end, View
Mm,
featuring Palo Alto and The Quiet.
yeah,
I think that was definitely kind of a throwback to Fana's first album. Just kind of the
yeah,
overall structure and the production to the song. And I also really love the piano
mm,
chord that was used
mm.
throughout the entirety of the song. And this song really almost felt more of like a, you know how we talked about how we both get confused still in terms of listening to Fana's music and like what he's trying to convey. But I think this one kind of eases off on that complexity because this one feels more a bit more like a self reflection of how far he
Yeah.
has come.
He isn't that abstract as much. There are a lot of, I mean, not a lot, but I think there is some less coded stuff in here.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I like coded stuff a lot,
Hmm.
but some directness is always appreciated, especially if the subject matter is great. View is one of them. Like, View was
Yeah.
actually like that song that I just talked about how Fana was deserving of all the money he has, right?
No doubt. Yeah.
Like, this is one of the, this and I think 2010, 2810
Yeah. 20. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
was also about that. Like 2810 is basically the amount of by the way, won
Hmm.
the money he had in his account. And
Wow.
2810 won is like $2.
Wow.
And this is a story narrative about how one day he looked at his account and all he had was $2.
Jeez. Wow.
Despite being a pretty well renowned underground rapper with multiple albums. And it's like,
Wow.
yeah, if anyone has to make it, it was this guy. And I think this kind of success arc that we're seeing with Fauna, because he never really compromised.
No. Yeah.
Because like compromise is a huge kind of sentiment in Korean hip hop with a lot of controversy.
Of course. Yeah.
Like the deflow justice, we already explained this, right?
Yeah.
But Fauna never did. He
Yeah.
literally never did. Like even the quiet, for example. The reason why the quiet isn't getting bashed on like D-Flow is that he never really hated the sense of going on TV. Never
Yeah.
explicitly said so.
Uh huh.
And at the end of the day, his music didn't really go the Korean pop way of having a singer on your hook and doing everything, stuff like that. But Fana is on another level in that shit because he was on like I think Show Me the Money 1 or 2 as a feature.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I think he did a feature for him, Mad Clown.
Oh,
But that was it. And this was like Show Me the Money too, so it wasn't before like Show Me the Money was that huge.
yeah.
So I think no one cares about that anyway. And he almost never went. I think he never went on TV. Actually,
Never.
he never tried to make music for the charts. He's responsible for the Ugly Junction.
Yes.
With what little he has, he always used it all for the culture instead of himself.
Yeah.
And he still managed to put all these great albums out.
Was Ugly Junction kind of like Master Plan in ways?
In a ways, yes. There's actually a very cute video of Jvcki Wai when she was a trainee of some sorts. Not exactly trainee. That
Oh,
would be the wrong way to put it. When she was like a super rookie,
okay.
and she's rapping up boom bap stuff. And there's a footage
Wow.
on YouTube where she has no makeup on and everything. Like she's like
Mhm.
I think like 18 years old in that video or something.
Mhm.
And Fana and his crew, I think
Mhm.
a couple of his friends is feeding her like food and shit like that,
Oh,
buying her some stuff like, and it was like, and when I was looking at that video, it was like, damn, like how many people did he put on? Number one,
yeah.
number two, like he was really there from the start. Like
Yeah.
he recognized Jvcki Wai like before she even knew how to use autotune.
Yeah.
That's crazy if you think about it,
No, yeah.
considering the
It's
influence that Jvcki Wai has had in Korean hip hop.
same thing with Kundi Panda. He's went through Ugly
Yeah,
Junction as well.
exactly. This isn't like picking up people when they were like already hot on SoundCloud. This is
No.
like really trying to dig in before it actually blew up
Yeah.
in at all in whatever
Yeah.
platform it is. Nobody has been realer than him
Yeah.
ever. Even Essence.
Yeah.
Like I explained like way in my earlier podcast how like Essence is considered the pinnacle of realness, right?
Mhm.
But if you think about it, like even Essence had the Supreme Team thing going on. The reason he could have afforded that realness is because he had a period in which he had to totally sell himself out.
Yeah.
The reason he's considered the realist is because he's the first one to, in a sense, to sort of like um that was actively tortured by that
Yeah.
and disavowed it through his independent career of sorts,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But Fauna didn't even go through that. Like,
True.
no exposure, no nothing, whatever it is. Like, this is the definition of underground. This is the definition of what we call underground. And this is obviously a very good way of reminding me of it. Like, I think his first album came out in like,
2009.
that's 12 years, 13 years.
13 years, man.
13 years of like literally going through all sorts of bullshit, going through having to be poor, going through having to, and still be so distributive enough to people who think he had potential. Like, actively showing us what a community is.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And not once did his alt falter in that process.
Yeah. I think the final track, the one following after View,
Mm.
Yoramgi, I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
might be his only kind of like the trap type of song that he has, which is still cool.
Was it trap? I'm not
Yeah, because it
sure.
was produced by co-produced with Boy Cold, and
Yeah.
so it kind of has like that
Isn't
more
that the
that mainstream. Yeah,
piano
yeah.
kind of? Is it that mainstream though?
I mean, for what for what he has though, that's what I'm saying. Like in terms of
Yeah,
like the whole
yeah.
the
I
Fanatic 2
guess.
album, I think like
Yeah.
that's the only song where you can hear a little bit of like that a
Mm.
mainstream kind of like delivery and that flow. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying like that's like bad or anything. I'm just saying like it's kind of like cool that he has like a song that's like that, you know,
Hmm.
because in all of his other songs, it's like staying true to Fana.
Yeah. I think like Yoramgi, especially the lyrical contents of it, like
Hmm.
kind of a panorama view of his like life. I think that
Yeah,
was great. There were a little bit of surprises here as well.
yeah,
I thought Basic would do a verse, but he ended up doing the hook.
yeah.
It was
BFG.
actually, yeah, that was a very catchy hook as too. Like
Yeah,
I never knew Basic had it and hinted to this.
yeah,
It worked. It worked perfectly. And like I said, like there's some very direct stuff here as well. like
Mhm.
광흥창에서. Like 광흥창 is where the Ugly Junction was located.
Mm.
It was about his like the sense of duty he felt he had for the hip hop community. Like it's very well addressed in there.
Yeah.
화석, the first fossil,
Mhm.
that track, considering like because this concept of aging within the hip hop scene, aging as an artist has always been a very dominant theme in Fana's music.
Yeah.
And I think this album of sorts is kind of an absolution moment.
Yeah.
Like from the start, he is like he's still on that fossil shit, but I think he realizes his place within the scene. That's
True.
great. 담배가 모자라요. Like I ran out of cigarettes. Is that the English
Yeah.
title?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is actually very self-reflective. Classic Hana. Chai, he's just rhyming his ass off. Olumar being like the dejected and the anthem.
Yeah.
Like Olumar is about not fitting in, the zebra
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
And as a person who has often felt that way, like that was like everything I wanted from Fana. Like that was my favorite
Yeah.
track here, Olumar. With that soul sample, that was great.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Pala, obviously, Germination, amazing track. I can't think of a single track that I don't like here.
Yeah. I mean, everything kind of like pinpoints back to like the first one, because like making a sequel album is kind of difficult, as though it is with movies.
Yeah.
And so
At the end of the day, though, if you think about it, like it was very different from the first album
very different. Yeah.
because the first album is like it's not exactly a very personal album.
No, not at all.
It's more about like that's why I always kept bringing up Doom is because Doom's music oftentimes is more about playing a character, right?
Yeah.
It's about being a supervillain and asserting dominance in a sense.
Yeah.
Of course, when he bears his soul, you can see it and it's very heartbreaking and stuff like that. But that's not the main persona of that shit.
Yeah.
And I always viewed Hana as that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I think this persists through like the first two albums.
Mhm.
But starting from his third, he becomes very personal.
Yeah.
And the absolute pinnacle of that was the fourth album, which is Fanabis.
Yeah.
Fanabis, yeah.
Yeah.
And look at the title; it says Abyss. Like that album is very dark,
Mhm.
brooding, almost. Like you really like it's like kicking himself into the abyss. Like from what I know, like during that album, like he was going through like panic disorder.
Panic disorder. Okay.
Yeah, he had like depression was a given at that point. He had panic disorders and stuff like that, and it shows.
Yeah.
And that was when really Juana started being like I was really resonating with Juana. Like
Mm.
his music has been responsible for keeping me alive in very depressive times. And
Yeah.
this album, I think he started to picking up being a little more lighter.
Yeah.
So it's like the perfect blend of like the emotional Juana and the lyrical, like the technician of Juana. So
Mhm.
it's like a kind of a sum up of his entire career.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see the evolution, whether you like the first album more or second album more. One thing you have to like admit in a sense is that he changed in the best way possible.
Overall, I think we're super excited where his career is now going to go now that he's
Mm,
signed under Daytona Entertainment, and so
mm.
hopefully, there's gonna be a lot more, I guess, hope and excitement for him in the
Yeah.
long run with the type of music that he'll bring after the really, really impressive Fanatic 2 album. So
Mm.
yeah, super excited. And as we begin to slowly wrap up our show, as usual, any artists or tracks that you're currently listening to and would like to share or recommend to our listeners? I mean, since we're talking about Fana and his Fanatic 2 album, might as well just go back to his first album, Fanatic 1. And I'm going to go with his kind of like his closing track, Semsota, which is track
Yeah.
number 12. This is definitely, like you said, in the whole album in Fanatic 1 it's really just about him just rapping. And
Mm,
then I think Semsota kind of like is like a good closure to that
mm,
album, like a more lighter tone because all the other ones were a bit, like darker, very spooky
mm,
kind of tone to it. But this one definitely brought a little bit more light to it, and I thought it was a kind of a good closing song, kind of like focusing on him being at a Soul Company and working with the Quiet and stuff. And I think the Quiet produced this track. The Quiet's vocals were on there too, just a little bit, but
mm.
I think overall this was Samsota was like one of the more, I would say, hidden gems compared to like Rhymonic
Yeah.
Storm or like, Masquerade. This was definitely one of the more sleeper tracks. So definitely go check out this track. It's a lot more lighter than his other tracks in that album.
That title is actually a punchline because
Oh, okay.
semsota means like to rise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you look at the word, it's just sem, comma, sota, right?
Yeah,
Like semsota, it like without the comma means to rise as well. But
yeah.
sota is also means rise as well. And the sam in front of it, this him,
Mm.
the sam is actually the mascot for Soul Company. Because if you
Oh,
look at the Soul Company logo, there's a bird on it, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that bird is called Sam.
Oh, that's
So it's
pretty
like
cool.
Sam Rise. So it was
Oh,
basically like Fana's kind of homage to Soul Company because he was a big part of Soul Company. And
yeah.
that was before like the whole debacle happened. That was in the initial stage of Soul Company. So in which like they all were a very tight community.
Mhm.
So that has that significance. You know what? If we're talking about Fana, I will go with there is this album called song the sixth track in there.
Mhm.
What's it called in English?
Guiding Star.
Guiding Star. That's exactly the literal translation of the song. The title is Kiljabiber. The literal
Mhm.
translation is Guidance Song. This is one of his most, I think, emotionally potent songs.
Okay.
You know how like when you close your eyes, you see lights.
Yeah.
Like he's talking about those lights.
Oh.
Like he's seeing them as guiding stars. Like the whole concept of the track is like he's feeling left alone. He
Yeah.
thinks like time is moving on, the age, the epoch, like the age is changing, the world is changing around him, and I think he feels like he can't keep up.
Mm.
And if you ever come to Seoul, you realize you'll never see stars.
Mm.
We live in a very industrialized society.
Yeah.
Um, the atmosphere is so dirty we can't see stars anymore.
Mm.
And in that sense, I think this song is about like he sees stars when he closes his eyes. He
Mm.
can't see stars in the sky anymore. He feels lost in this world. And
Yeah.
this song is about how like when you close your eyes, there's still stars there in the night.
Mhm.
Like that kind of metaphor is where it starts, and that's such a beautiful way of looking at things
Yeah.
even when he was in the like lowest throes of like panic depression.
Yeah.
And the beat and everything is perfect. The lyrics are perfect. The way his voice delivers is perfect.
Yeah.
I strongly suggest if there's a translation to it, like look up the lyrics to it as well.
Mhm.
This song helped me through so many tough times.
Mhm.
Like this is like Kid Cudi level of life saving shit. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
wow.
Yeah. So the whole album is of course great, but the guiding stars alone, like, oh man, like this is still on my playlist these days. Like whenever I
Mhm.
feel down, whenever I
Yeah.
feel like especially in this crazy ass world, this is still a staple for me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to listen to it someday. Especially
Mhm.
me being alone in Virginia these
Yeah.
days. Yeah, this is such a great song. Strongly recommend it. I mean, at this point, I'll have to say this song is a part of my soul, in a
Mm.
sense, is a part of who I am. Like, definitely check it out. If you're going through dark times, this is the song for you.
Mm.
Definitely. I'm sure you're going to find solace in it. Even if you don't understand the lyrics, I think you'll kind of get what I mean just by listening
Mhm.
to it. The vibe is there. So,
For sure.
yeah, great song. Man, I I can't even remember how many times I heard this crossing the Hangang Bridge and shit.
Mm.
Like it's definitely a kind of a what do you call it, a moment in time kind of song for me.
Mm.
This like and Essence's Flight, like those two songs, just
Yeah.
yeah, there's an anthem in my life, some sort. So definitely recommend it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but please do comment and let us know what you think of the topics that we talked about today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please go and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms and please give us that 5-star rating. If you want more K hip hop contents, please go and check out Daytona's Instagram at myk_Daytona for K hip hop album reviews. Also, please follow our social media page at soul_therapy. Thank you guys so much and see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.